Okay, so it's 2 hours before the start, and there's nobody lined up on the street. So yeah, you don't need to be here early like everybody says. At least not yet. There were a lot of stuff that I was told that wasn't really true or wasn't really helpful, and there was a bunch of stuff that I wish I would have known. So for the handful of people who might find this video useful, I'm going to go over a bunch of things I wrote down on the flight home from the trip. Hopefully it'll make your experience at UTMB that much easier, more enjoyable, a little less stressful. We stayed at the Heliopak Hotel. Amazing hotel. They're so nice, but you got to book it early, especially if you know you're getting in to the race before the actual lottery part. How I got in, I went to the Canyons 100 in California. I finished top 10 in my age group. I got an automatic entry for finishing top 10. Stayed at the Heliopak Hotel. There's the gondola. And a view from a hotel. Maybe 10-minute walk all the way to bag drop, expo, 5-10 minute walk to the start line. Super easy to get to. You just go down this one road all the way to a T intersection, take a right, takes you right to the start finish line. Super easy to get around. It was very affordable. It has a spa. Off to the right is a whirlpool, and then right below us is the cold room, and then there's a sauna, there's showers, and then a steam room. And then there's a cold plunge right underneath me. Big pool. And go down the stairs to the spa. And all the books. This is the lobby and the rest of the lobby. And at the end is drinks. And then if you go out to the right, that's where the Aguillo de Midi is, right across the parking lot. And then they have a little lounge area over here. You go down the stairs down there, that's where the spa is. Just a great place to recover, and also to relax before the race. Just kind of, after you do some sightseeing, do a little recovery in the spa. And it's free for hotel guests, and you can go as much as you want, no limit. You can stay as long as you want. So one of the more important things to do when you're planning your trip for UTMB is you got to book everything early. Hotel, airfare, it's just, there's a lot of people going to a small place. But the other thing you got to book early is your bus to go from the Geneva airport to Chamonix. That's how we went. They fill up fast, and there's a lot of different companies that offer rides. We went with the race sponsored one, the Alply or something like that, Alplus or whatever it was. They gave a race discount out, and if you booked before a certain date, it was 20%, and then went to 15, and then 10, something like that. And if you want to get a good time after your flight comes in, so you can just hop on the bus and head out, book it early. Otherwise, you might be sitting at the airport for a couple hours waiting for a later bus. The bus ride took 45 minutes, maybe an hour, maybe less. It was super easy, very scenic. It's totally worth it. It doesn't cost a lot. It's super easy to book it. And it's a pretty reliable company that we went with. No language barrier. And the best part about where we stayed at the Heliopak Hotel is 1 block away is where the bus drop is. So we got let off, walked around the corner, and we're at our hotel. And then when we left after the race to head back to Geneva to spend a day there, we just grabbed our bags, walked 1 block, and we're back on the bus and head out. The other thing, you do want to get to the bus pickup just a smidge early, so that, well, one, you got to get checked in, and 2, you want to be able to sit next to the person you're with or with your family. A lot of people are individuals, or they might have an odd number, and so sometimes it's hard to sit next to the person you're with. And there was a couple of things that I didn't know we needed until really a couple weeks before the race, and they're like, hey, your race entry is incomplete because you don't have rescue insurance. So I was just kind of scrambling to see what the best rate was. There's 3 or 4 different companies that will cover the race. It's highly unlikely you're going to need it, but you never know. But it is required. So I went with the UTMB rescue insurance. I think it was $35, $45. I don't remember what it was. It's not a lot, but it kind of sucked to have to pay for it because you're not going to use it. But I went with as one person said, if crap hits the fan, I'd rather have the race be in charge of my rescue insurance so I don't have to dink around with trying to get reimbursed or pay for fees. I'm entered in the race is covering my insurance, so I thought that would be the easiest one, and it was the same price as pretty much everybody else. So, and it's took 5 minutes to sign up for the insurance, and then you just enter this number in on the website that you get for entering your insurance, and you're done. If you forget, they'll just email you and remind you. In years past, UTMB required a medical check. You had to go to a doctor and have them sign a form or something. They did away with that thanks to the Olympics, because the Olympics didn't want to deal with that. So now UTMB doesn't have to deal with it. It's a France rule, not a UTMB rule. But they got rid of that, so now they just make you watch a little webinar. It's like 2 5-minute videos or something, or a 5-minute video, and then you just click a button that says you agree, you watched it, you understand that you might get hurt running, and that's it. So it's super easy. But then once you get done, you have to enter, I think you have to enter a number saying, or like some code or something onto the website saying you watched it, a little certificate or something like that. So there's little things like that you have to do when you're registering for the race. If you don't have them completed, your website entry will say incomplete on it, and you'll also probably get emails. You just have to be aware that you have to do all these extra steps, which they're not really laid out when you register. You keep tabs on your website, sign in once in a while, verify that it says complete, that everything is complete. And one other tip, you do need to have your phone running for the tracking app on it, and I had it in, you can't have it in airplane mode, you have to have it in just regular phone mode, so it's going to suck down some power. So if you have an older phone that's, doesn't hold the battery as long, do consider carrying a portable battery pack with you, or have one at your drop bag or with your crew or something like that. I end up having to recharge my phone once during the race just to top it off, so that I knew I could get all the way to the finish, so that my crew could track me during the race. I did kind of worry that I would run out of phone and how much battery the app would drain, because you can't really test it before the race. But I was able to get almost through the whole race with my phone, because I didn't touch my phone at all. I didn't take photos, didn't listen to music or anything, and I was able to get through the race for the most part. In America, expos give you lots of free stuff. At UTMB, they had tons of vendors. There's tons of products. You can really explore new options for hydration vests, shoes, stuff like that, and then bring them back home. Especially since like a lot of those companies don't even ship them over to America. So the expo is really big, covers a lot of ground, a lot of vendors you don't find in the States. Hoka has we're here for the women's race shirts, and they're also getting them in French later, so we stopped and checked that out. But there's absolutely pretty much no free stuff here, it's just stuff to buy. And they have these really cool porta potties over here that everything's like all environmentally safe. The expo goes down there. And you got Mont Blanc behind you. The Gila de Midi tram that goes all the way up to the top. You can see the second wires going to the right up to the mountain. And way at the top is 12,000 feet where you can go and look straight down through a glass floor. So lots of stuff to find here. Well worth walking around, but plan on a couple hours to be here. Just go past the expo, and then you'll be at bid pickup, packet pickup. Packet pickup process is a little confusing if you've never been there before, because there's signage, but it's kind of hard to understand. So when you walk over to get your packet, you're going to go into this building, and I have a video of the entrance, and I think there's some mountaineers on a big painted wall or something on a hotel. That's a really good landmark to tell you where you're going. So straight ahead, that's where you do your bid pickup, and there's a tent off to the right. And then you have to have a receipt on your phone to get a mobility pass. You'll probably miss that 3 or 4 times, because there's no real signage that says pick up your bus pass here for the shuttles to go to Courmayeur. So that was a little confusing. So right before you go into to get your packet into this building, just off to the right is a white tent, and there's some volunteers, and you just tell them what you want and they'll just give it to you. All you have to do is show them this sort of an email from your phone. They look it up, they find your number, then cross you off, give you your passes, and you're on your way. And they'll answer all your questions about what time the shuttles go, where they're at in town.
So, Christina,
Yeah.
I recognize you. This is your bracelet to take the bus. Don't put it on now because it's not waterproof. and then you come back to Chamonix.
Yes.
Then tomorrow morning you can go to.
So when you go in to get your bib, you're gonna just walk through. It's pretty straightforward. They just kind of guide you through. You walk in, show them your info. You have to show them your passport, get your bib number, and they give you some info about your the passes for your crew to get into like Courmayeur and stuff. Not the bus. This is where it was confusing. They give you these passes and make you think it's the bus pass to get to the places, but it's actually just the pass to get into the buildings to show that you're crew, because only one person come in and crew you at each aid station, which the first couple I'll get to are just a complete cluster mess. But they have to have these little passes, so they give those to you in the packet and they show it to you and they give you your bib number, and then you I think you get something else or whatever, and then they're like, okay, go off that way, get your photo taken.
Okay. Just over there to get your book.
Okay, merci. Bonjour.
UTMB. Christian.
Bonjour.
Yeah.
Your bag even.
Ooh, it's this one.
And now you have to take your ticket.
Bonjour.
Bonjour. You want to go back?
Yes, please.
Bonjour. For the
Yep.
assistance,
So they're for assistance.
one person.
Okay.
If you got crew helping you, that's for that. But
And pre-race photo, and that was like really cattle process. They were just pushing you through. They're like, photo, click, done, go, because they were not patient there. They were like, let's go, photo, done. Exit out the back of the building, and there's the vendors that sell all the shirts, hats, all that kind of stuff. So you can meet your crew or your family at that tent, but they can't go in with you to get your bib. So from that tent where they can get their passes to go to the shuttle passes, then they have to walk all around that building, meet you at the expo, and then you can walk through the rest of the expo. So we flew in on Wednesday, did some sightseeing Wednesday afternoon, and then Thursday morning I went and got my bib pickup. I was there first thing, and it was like 9 o'clock. I got my packet. I walked in, walked out, no lines. But I've seen photos of later in the day where the lines were out the building, and took people a half hour, whatever to get through the lines. So definitely get there early. If you can get there Wednesday or Thursday morning, definitely get there. And then after I exited the packet pickup area and went to the vendor area where you can get all your souvenir shirts and stuff like that, they were already picked over with a lot of the sizes, and it was not even 10 o'clock on Thursday morning. And then you can still shop Friday morning and all day Friday, and I think you can pick up your packets because the race doesn't start till 6, so you have Friday. But by that point, all the good stuff sold out, all the sizes are picked over. I got one shirt that was the last size in that shirt. I think it was even the last shirt that they had. So I just kind of got lucky, and that was Thursday morning, so you definitely want to get there early. There you go. There's the. So definitely get here early. 11 o'clock, and it's packed, and the sizes are running out. So come Wednesday or early Thursday, and they have other vendors and booths. Nice backdrop. Okay, we're at backdrop. It's at the Sports Center. I am number 1334. Hello. Merci.
Merci.
Thank you. Okay. Now we gotta walk about a half mile back to the start line. There's Mont Blanc. Now the start line, I kept being told you gotta get there 2 hours early, like it starts at 6 p.m. Get there at 4 so you can get in front of the pack, otherwise you're gonna be way down the street. And I got there 4:30. I went all the way, dropped my my drop bag off for Courmayeur, and walked all the way back to the start line thinking, I gotta get there early. I got there, there's nobody there for like an hour. It was just me and a bunch of guys from who did hunt the CCC and stuff like that. They were telling me stories about the race, what to expect, how to, they were talking about the water that you can drink and you can't drink, all these really good helpful tips. I learned more talking to strangers waiting for an hour than I did leading up to the race and all the research. That's why I'm making this video. So I'm gonna try and give you as much as I can, but you don't have to get there that early. At least I didn't. A half hour before the race, I walked right up. Start line, people getting photos. Most people are just spectators. And I could see, well, in the video you can see how close I was. I really wasn't that far away. Maybe 500 people back. I felt like I was 1,000 people because of all the people I had to pass and get through. But yeah, don't stress getting there early. 5:30, you're fine. But your family can stand with you, or your friends or whatever. They don't have any rules, which kind of sucks because it got so full. Like half the people were runners, half the people were family. So I could have actually been a lot closer. What you also want to do is bring some food, something to drink. But the first aid station isn't till mile 13 with food. The first water station is 4 to 5 miles, probably about 5 miles into the race. So you can top off bottles there, and they actually have soda at that first one too, and water. I'll get to the soda. It's not real soda, but so you want to bring some food to carry with you to get to mile 13. I can't remember how many hours I was running, but I was at the start line with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich that I made. I got a croissant or something at some local bakery, threw some peanut butter and jelly on, called it good. Didn't have any food. I had a Cliff Bar. That's all I had for the first 13 miles. So I was really hungry when I got to that first aid station. Go over all the gear that I have to carry for UTMB, plus drop bag, plus the cold weather, plus the hot weather gear. So I'm gonna fly all the way over there, and I have to bring everything with me in case they activate the hot weather or the cold weather, and you don't want to have to buy anything. That hydration pack over there, when it's fully loaded, weighs at least 4 pounds. It looks like a big load of stuff, and it is. I'm going to work on trying to figure out how to minimize it. They have some cinch cords on the side here of the pack, so I'm going to yank on these guys to get a nice tight grip on the back so it doesn't have any bounce. I showed all the gear at the beginning, and when you load it up, it's heavy. What I did was I went out for a 50-mile run, 11 hours, the hardest trails I could find, hilliest trails, power hiked them, but I left my pack on fully loaded, what I would use for race day to simulate it. I went for 20-mile runs with it, just around town, on the streets. If I did my hill workout, I threw the pack on fully loaded, with water, everything. The only thing I didn't take, I didn't have my poles out when I was doing around town, but I did carry them with me, just to have that as much weight as possible to teach my shoulders how to handle the weight. What I did do was, which I'll show a photo, I put KT tape across my shoulders so that I wouldn't get any chafing or rubbing on my shoulders from all the weight. And I think that was a game changer for me. It's an old backpacking or through hiker trick that people use. They just put tape over their shoulders, or if the pack's rubbing their lower back, they put tape there. So I used that same concept, and I had no issues. And also learn how to, like during a trail run or a practice run, take out your raincoat, put it, like spread it out, put it on, or a long sleeve shirt, and then practice putting it back in exactly where you found it in your Ziploc bag. I started off with some dry bags, but they were too bulky and big, so I went to Ziploc bags because I compressed the air out of them. But what I did was, like, I took the long sleeve out, and then I was like, well, I don't want to put this back in the Ziploc bag. This is going to take too long. And then when I went to grab something else later, there was just a mess in there. I should have taken the time to like roll the shirt up, put it back in nicely, because then I could get to my headlamps easier or whatever else I needed. So I didn't practice that, and then I got a little anxious during the race, and it actually caused more trouble later in the race where I had to stop and just repack everything anyways, because if it's packed nicely, it's a tight fitting pack, it doesn't bounce. However, they were making a big deal about you need to have 2 liters of water, 4 flasks, you need to have this, you have to have a coat, you have a 180 gram shirt. No. Here's what I use. I had biking gloves with padding on the palms for my trekking poles. I almost never was in the race without my trekking poles out. On long descents and into aid stations, I packed my poles away onto my vest so I could have my hands free, where I could run faster downhill. Otherwise, I had those poles out and I was going, so I always have padded biking gloves. And So that was basically like having gloves when it got a little chilly out. So my fingertips got a little cold, but otherwise I didn't need gloves at all during the race. Even at mile 30, we were in an exposed area, climbing up a mountain, wind started blowing, and I was cold and I could have put gloves on, but I didn't need to. My biking gloves were doing a pretty good job. However, we went about maybe 10 or 15 minutes where we had to put a long sleeve shirt on because it just got so cold with the wind hitting us, and we just couldn't handle it anymore. It was getting a little on the miserable side where just shorts and a t-shirt wasn't good enough. So we stopped. I met this runner from Portland. We stopped, put long sleeves on, and then that got us up and over the mountain. And then once we got out of the wind, it started sending back down and turning a little bit, and we got so hot so quick we had to shed those shirts off. So the whole race I ran in shorts and a t-shirt. If you stand around at an aid station or you stop on the side of a trail, you're gonna get cold in the middle of the night, guaranteed. As long as you're moving though, at least in my weather, I mean, it could be really cold next year or really hot or just average. You never know. But for my race, I basically ran the whole race in shorts and a t-shirt. Now what I would say is, knowing how cold it can get in the exposed areas of the mountains, if you're at different times of the day, at like basically 4 to 6, 3 to 5 in the morning is the coldest part. So if you're in an exposed area on a mountaintop, or maybe in a valley or something, it might get a little colder. You do want your gear. I mean, it's no joke. You can get hurt out there, you can get really cold, you can get really hot. Like, you just have no idea what the weather's going to be like, so you got to be prepared. So you got to carry all that gear that they tell you. You want to have the long sleeve, you want to have the gloves, but I just didn't need it. That, you know, and all I needed was just a couple little things. I didn't even use the extra 2 flasks, and I'll tell you why. Because every 4 miles through the whole course, there's farms, towns, or they call them refuges. There's basically portable water. There's tanks, there's fountains, there's just like troughs with like these fountain things going. There's water somewhere every 4 miles, and it's easy to find there along the course. You don't have to search for them, and so you don't really have to ration as much as you would think. I made it through each aid station 2 bottles. I would just top them off every 4 miles. It might be 6 to 8 miles between aid stations, but at mile 3, water stop. A guy from the Netherlands, before the race started, he says, whatever you do, don't drink from any place that says non-potable. I think that's what the actual wording was. Non-potable, meaning non-drinking water or non-portable water. That's basically for the cows. And if you see cows anywhere near where you're at, don't drink the water unless it says specifically it's meant for drinking, because it's all contaminated by the runoff from the cows. So there'll be 2 different like watering stations, one for the cows, one for the people, and it's well marked. You just have to actually read it. Don't just grab water randomly. So this refuge, they have bathrooms, they have water, you can even get food if you really want, which I'll get to that in a little bit too. Those aid station food, whew, no. So since you're already carrying a bunch of weight, you don't really want to fill up a 3rd or 4th flask of water unless you sweat a lot, you're really dehydrated. I mean, everybody should run their own race their own way. Me, I was able to, and I like to drink a lot of water. I get thirsty, I get dehydrated. So, but I made it through with 2 flasks, so no problem. The other thing about the weather is when they say it's going to be hot weather, it may only be 70, but it feels like 80. If it's 80, it feels like 85, 90. So you don't underestimate when they say it's hot, because basically the first 70 miles, there's almost no trees. And like coming out of Core Mayer, you have some trees and going up this big ass climb. And you know, there's some spots where you do have some trees where you come down into the cities or something, but for the most part, you're completely exposed. So it's just you, the sun, no shade, and there's almost no wind out there too, so to cool me down. So anytime you saw like a creek, a waterfall or something, I was trying to like dip my hat or I had some arm coolers on, like the same ones I used at Western States. I was just trying to throw water on my arms, anything to cool myself down. But once from 10 until maybe 6, it was just hot. Like not brutal 100-degree hot, but enough to make you feel a little lightheaded, dehydrated, dry mouth. Another thing I forgot was they don't do any pre-race gear check. They do have a booth right after you get out of your pack and pickup before the expo. That little transition area where you can ask a volunteer to check all your gear to make sure it meets requirements just in case. I didn't check my gear before the race, and then during the race they only asked for a couple items, so it wasn't really a big deal. I wasn't too worried. Leading up to the race, I kept thinking I'm going to get dinged if I don't have the right jacket or a shirt that met requirements, but it was a lot of stress for nothing. They really have laxed their gear check requirements. As long as you have the gear with you, you're fine. Just don't stress over if it's very specific and meets certain requirements and certain specs and stuff like that. Oh yeah, aid stations. You have a crew at, I don't know, 4 or 5 aid stations, something like that. And there's a spot on one of the videos, 1820, I don't know what I want your crew to get in. The line was ridiculous.
Okay, we're at the aid station right after St. Gervais. This is a crew station. I don't know how you find anybody. Okay, so I'm about mile 20. Wow. I guess that's to get in there.
There was a long wait, and people were saying they were missing their runner because the line was so hard to get in. They won't let you in until a certain amount of time before your runner gets there. And the timing chip said that they were on their way, but they were actually... It's a mess at the beginning until you get to mile, I don't know, 50 Courmayeur. After mile 50, aid stations are easy access. I mean, they're full of people. If there's crew, there's a lot of people there, but it gets a little more manned. Okay.
How are you doing, Chris? I did not expect this. So
I ran the whole race. I saw my girlfriend a couple times, but I was on my own the whole race, and I did fine. However, if you have a crew that can get there, it'll make a huge difference because you have to fill your own bottles, but the water stops or the water stations to fill your bottles are outside of the food tent. So you grab your food, you sit and rest, then you got to go out, fill your bottles, and then the bathrooms might be a little farther off to the side. So you're moving around quite a bit, and you end up walking an extra mile or two through the whole race just because the aid stations, you have to do so much walking around, getting in the building and exiting the building. So if you have somebody to help you fill bottles so you can rest, that'd be awesome. But the other thing is the aid station food is god-awful horrible. I'm saying that as an American, you know, in case you're watching from overseas. But, you know, overseas you were like, this is the best food ever. But in America, we're used to quesadillas, grilled cheese, peanut butter and jelly, pizza. I mean, anything you can think of in the middle of the night. It was the same food at every aid station. It was pasta, cheese, and I swear it was goat cheese. And then we had like some breads. Bread was really good. And crackers are decent. And I think they had pretzels. And that was it. It was like salami or something like that. It's like basically I was just relying on pasta and rice. They had rice, and they had some broth that you can mix in with it later in the race. But I was thinking, okay, here's what I'm going to use. I'm going to go with the broth, and I'm going to go with the pasta. And then what happened was I get to a couple aid stations, and there would be no pasta. I get to an aid station, no rice. I get to an aid station, no. You just didn't know what to expect. Where they ran out, where they just didn't have it at all. But the core items that every aid station had, I thought they would make me sick, and I wasn't going to take a chance on a cheese I'd never tried before. I've never had salami during a race, so I didn't know what that would do to me. So I was running on pretzels, maybe crackers, and they had some really good chocolate. So I used that as like a comfort food, a happy food. Yeah, it was just like, and the fruits were apples and like pears or something. And they had like watermelon, but they kept slicing the watermelon so small and so thin that you'd have to grab like a dozen slices to get one normal slice that you would normally like find at an aid station. It was really, really hard to get your calories in. Now, if I would have had a crew and I was thinking ahead and I had them serious, I'd have had them bring some peanut butter jelly. I would have found stuff at the local bakeries or something that's Cliff Bars, Fig Bars, peanut butter jelly, whatever it is. I would have had that with me with my crew, and I'd have been awesome. I would have flown through the race because I would have had so many good calories, so many foods that I'm comfortable with, but I was struggling to get through those aid stations. I mean, I did okay. You know, the pasta was the game changer for me. If I wouldn't have had the pasta, I don't think I would have made it. Bottle fillers at outside, and you just have to do them yourself, which is fine. In the States, you know, you get a volunteer. Hey, let me fill your bottles while you get this food. Their volunteers are just strictly dedicated to laying out the food and keeping it stocked. So the other thing they call it Pepsi. It's SodaStream, and it's a very generic, fake tasting cola, and supposedly it has caffeine in it, but I don't remember ever feeling a caffeine burst from any of it. It tasted really flat. I just felt like it didn't have any caffeine in it. And so you need that to get through 2 nights. And so I had some caffeine pills, just these 100 milligram pills. And I tried to get as far as I could. And when I started feeling a little tired, a little sleepy or something, then I started using them. But what I learned was your body can only take so much caffeine before it just says no more. And no matter how much caffeine you drink or take from pills or whatever it is, your body's going to rebel and say, no, I just need to rest. I need to lay down for 10 minutes. It's going to let you know. And you have to know that breaking point where caffeine can't keep you going. And mine was at mile 90. So don't rely on the Pepsi. I just started, like, the whole course was just kind of starting to do this little shifty thing on me, and I was getting a little hard to focus. I was daydreaming while I was walking instead of paying attention. So I laid down on the trail for 15 minutes. I think I was out for 8 or 10 minutes, where I was just kind of in and out sleeping, not REM sleeping, just enough to like let my body shut down, recalibrate. I woke up and I was fine, and I was great for the rest of the race. And it's the 10 minutes in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean anything. And the other thing about like aid stations is you need to actually sit down. The first couple, you're trying to blow through them because you're trying to get out of the crowds, you know, you're trying to talk to your crew or whatever, but it's so many people at the beginning, and then by the time you get to Courmayeur, everything starts really spreading out, and then by mile 70, you might not see somebody for a few hours, miles, or something like that. But you need to stop, especially at Courmayeur from mile 50 on. Take 20 minutes, take 10 minutes, whatever you need to do just to stop, rest, regroup yourself, because every time you leave an aid station, you seem to go up a monster climb, and you need all the energy you can. There's bathrooms at the aid station, like every aid station has some sort of a bathroom. Some are nicer than others, but there's always a decent bathroom. And then the refuges, they have some bathrooms, so you know you never have to worry. And there's a ton of through hiking going on, so taking a whiz off the side of the trail is the best option. There's somebody around you pretty much most of the race. Even at night, you'll just be like randomly coming across people. There's always somebody that speaks passable English throughout the whole race. However, Italy was a lot harder to communicate. There was one station, aid station, that nobody spoke English. And I kept saying like water, and then somebody comes in and goes, the Italian word for water is this, and they go, oh, you want water? And I'm like, yeah, I'm pointing at the water. It was just so hard. But I said, can I have that? And they go, oh, you want Pepsi? I'm like, yeah. Like, they actually said Pepsi, even though I was saying Pepsi. They didn't. It was just hard to communicate. So try and learn just a handful of words: water, bathroom, thank you, please. Those are the 2 biggest words. When you walk in, be like, please and thank you. That'll get you everywhere. It's just common, you know, everybody says bonjour in, you know, French. That'll get you instant kindness from the person that's helping you. So have some basic words if you can, memorized or even just written down on a little cheat sheet, where you can be like, bathroom or aid station or medical, like blisters, you know, or something like. Then they go, oh, medical, and they can point you to. And the other thing is, they don't use miles. I kept going, what's a kilometer? I was so rusty on my conversion charts and stuff. So I was just relying on my watch, which had the map and showed me the upcoming hills and how many feet and all that kind of stuff. But they have signs up that says how many miles or how many kilometers and how many meters of climb to the next aid station. Super helpful. Like Courmayeur is obviously one of the biggest ones. It's halfway, you got a bag drop, it's your only bag drop, there's crew, and it can be hard to find a spot to lay your stuff out, and sometimes people take up an entire table. Let's just say courtesy kind of goes out the window at UTMB. Everybody's from a different country, there's different etiquette, different way of life, whatever it is. But that said, plan on kind of battling for some spots to sit at an aid station. One thing you want to do, a definite do, is when you do your packet pickup. So this is how my pack from behind would look. If I was laying on my stomach taking a dirt nap, what I should have done if I had my pack on my back still is I could have just flipped this over and let people know I was sleeping and taking a little dirt nap on the side of the trail. It says, don't bother me, I'm sleeping. I didn't know what that was for because they didn't really explain it. The person that was helping me with my packet didn't speak great English, and she shows me all the stuff and she goes, good? And I go, sure, yeah. So if you do a dirt nap on the trail, you're just out in the middle of nowhere, throw that little tag up on the back of your pack or on your chest or just put it next to you, and people know you're okay. I didn't think about it until I was actually out there and taking a nap, and I'm thinking, I can hear people walk by and go, is he okay? They would just been, oh, he's sleeping, and they would just kept on going. It's written in French and English that says, don't bother me, I'm napping, or something like that. It was like pretty clever little thing to have, because they know you're probably gonna need a nap, whether it's at the aid station or just out on the trail. And I saw so many people like sitting upright against a tree, laying down on the grass, laying on rock. You know, some people just like their body just shut down, and you're like, is he okay? And those tags can make a big difference between somebody bothering you and not bothering you and letting you get that sleep that you need. The other thing you definitely want to do is it comes with a flag for your country, and you want to put that on your pack. I ended up putting a safety pin and a zip tie to hold it in place so it didn't flap around in the wind. But the biggest advantage to having a flag on your pack is, well, one, it tells people where you're from, and two, it tells people where you're from. So if you come across another American, they're going to speak English, they're going to talk to you, they're going to socialize, they're going to ask you where you're from, and it's going to make it a little bit more enjoyable. But what I found, I met a guy from Portland, and it was about mile 20 or something like that, and we went for, I don't know, 8-10 hours together. Like, we just teamed up, we were on the same pace, we had really good conversations, and the reason I said anything to him was I saw his flag, and I said, where are you from? And we started talking. I said, I did this race, and he goes, oh, I know that, I live down the street from it, and you know, yada yada. And next thing you know, we're power hiking up a mountain together, we're doing teamwork to get through some of the harder climbs, and it made the race fly by and so enjoyable. And then when I saw him later in the race, or at the finish line or something, you know, gave us another chance to talk and, you know, just enjoy the experience together. So I mean, that's what it's all about. You're out there to have fun, right? So if you have somebody to talk to and have fun with, it makes it even better. So do put the flag on your pack. It'll make a huge difference. Let me just break the course down to you and how it's really going to play out. I mean, you're going to see videos and you're going to read stuff. The gist of it is, the first 4 miles is along a river coming out of Chamonix. You're just running kind of rollers, and by rollers I mean like speed bump kind of hills. You'll walk up a little bit, people slow down, the crowds are kind of slow on the hills. Otherwise, it's a really well-flowing group of runners till like mile 4, and then once you get out of the trails, you come onto a road, and that's where the water station is at mile 4-ish or something like that. So, and then that's a big wide open road, but I never had trouble passing people or being passed, and I didn't have too big of a slowdown for anywhere along the first 4 miles. So just plan on running the whole time. The slowest you're going to be is coming out of the start line, where it's hard to get going. You just have to wait for the crowd to kind of get moving and get into a rhythm. And then after that, you'll run for the first probably 4 or 5 miles nonstop. At mile, I think it's almost 5.5 exactly, at mile 5.5, you're going to pull your poles out, you're going to go up a steep climb, there's a stairwell, and then you start this big long climb, and that's that scene that in my video where it's all rocks and you just hear the clinking and clacking of the feet and the poles and stuff. It's hypnotic, it's annoying, and it lasts forever. You feel like some of these, that's the first big climb, and it feels like it took like 3 hours. It was probably like an hour or something, but you know, it's a couple miles, and it's just constant climbing, and it's the first big climb of the race. That's what it's like the whole race after that. It's long climbs, long descents, some flats, but you know, just get ready to lock in with those poles from mile 5 until you do a long descent. Coming into the first aid station at mile, like the first main aid station at mile 13, you're gonna just pack your poles away. Once you feel you're descending out of the mountain down into the valley, just put your poles back in your pack or something, or however you store them. You're going to be flying, and it's a steep descent. The thing with the Alps is, basically rule of thumb, if you're going a steep incline going up the mountain, it's going to be the exact same descent going down the other side. It's almost equal. It's rare that you're going to have one where it's really steep and then a long gradual climb. So if it takes you forever to climb up, it's going to probably be the same kind of descent. It just felt like everything was a mirror image of each other. After we left mile aid station 13, so then after that, it's kind of flat runnable for like 4 or 5 miles with some easy inclines, and then you eventually get to this next aid station around 20 or something like that. And that is the first crewing aid station, and that was just mayhem. I mean, you could get to the food at first, and then your crew helps you, like, after you pass the food. And then it was just like I had to kind of fight my way to get through that one. You can see in the video where I'm like trying to reach in to grab some food. There's people everywhere. There's just a small spot where you can walk through. I was like, I'm out of here. It's where they checked my gear to make sure I had the required items, which again, they tell you to bring all this stuff, and all I want to know is, do you have a phone? Which they didn't even ask if it was on or not. A foil blanket and my extra bottles. Which they were all in my pack. Never touched them. You know, I just like pulled them out real quick, threw them down. She's like, good, checks me off, I'm out of there. Didn't take very long, which I listed them all out in the video, like which aid stations were which, to kind of help you plan ahead. So then after that, that's when you start climbing. Like, you leave that station, and that's where I met the guy from Portland. We were coming out of that one, and I was like, it was cold, you know, I was trying to like get warmed up again, you know, trying to get into a power hike. And then you just kind of cruise up this easy road, and then eventually you just start climbing, and it never ends. It feels like you're climbing from mile 20 to 30. I don't remember how the ups and downs work anymore. It's like it's all blur. But at the time, I felt like I climbed for like 10 miles straight, and it's dark, it's getting a little chilly, but as long as you're moving, you're fine. So that's where having a flag on somebody's pack, and like meeting somebody to team up with to get up those big climbs, it paid off huge. My sanity, my just like mental toughness was better. You know, I didn't really think about the climb as much because we were having so much fun talking about just random stuff. So then mile 30 down to the aid station, this is where I fell off the side of the mountain. The whole side just blew out from under me, and I almost fell down the face of the side of the mountain there. And it's actually probably my favorite spot in terms of view. You can see the glaciers, you can see the snow caps, you have streams and like kind of this wetland prairie it's so cool. And then the cows coming up out of the hill. Definitely one of my favorite spots. I mean, there was a helicopter coming down to evacuate somebody down there too. So, you know, it's just an awesome spot. And that's mile 35 or something like that. And then you get in there, a good aid station. No toilet paper in the bathroom, so carry some extra toilet paper with you. I wish I would have had the toilet paper more handy instead of buried in my pack, because I didn't want to take the time to dig it out. Anyway, you come out and you start climbing again. And again, you come up 30 miles, or mile 30, and then you descend down to the valley, and then you go up out of the valley. That's the kind of the theme of the whole course, is you're just going down and back up, valley, back up. You know, it's just same thing over and over. And so you hit over 8,000 feet. I think I've written down 5 times that you go over 8,000 feet of elevation, and those climbs are brutal. So now the sun's coming up around mile 35 or so. Mountain, the sunrise, such a pretty area. Coming out, beautiful spot around that aid station for the sunrise, because it's right between the mountains. So cool. That's why it was my favorite spot. So then the heat starts building up. You're at 35, Courmayeur's mile 50. So as the sun comes up, it's getting warmer and warmer and warmer. By 10 o'clock, we're at Courmayeur, 10:30. But we were flying. And so we got to see some good sunrises. Got to get to Courmayeur before it got too hot. We got in before the crowds were too bad at Courmayeur. So that worked out great. But then, like, basically going up from 35, you're going up, up, up. Then you go down into Courmayeur, which is a super steep switchback descent. You're basically just like tearing up your quads trying to fight the down. It's rooted, it's fast, it's quick switchbacks. It's awesome. It's so much fun to like go down, but it's like you got to really pay attention. A lot of roots. So we come into Courmayeur, awesome running into that town, and just it'd be an awesome place to explore is what it would be. So you come into Courmayeur, you spend 10, 20, 30 minutes, whatever it was, to get your shoes changed. Definitely change your shoes there, socks, all that stuff. New fresh clothes, you don't have to come in through the night. You're going to be sweating all day now. So we took our time, and I wish I would have had like a Coke or some sort of like kind of Red Bull type energy drink, something with caffeine there in my bag drop. That would have been awesome. Lots of caffeine to get out of there. Because once you run out of town, from there, it's just a subtle incline leaving Courmayeur, and then it's this brutal climb, almost straight up the mountainside. But then there's a spot where I think I showed in the video where you can see Courmayeur from the hill.
Look at Courmayeur. Look at that.
Awesome view. So cool. But that climb is relentless. It takes forever. And then finally you get to the top, and then you get to descend back down. And then that's where you kind of start into these rollers. You got some long climbs and stuff, but you're just going up and down. You're going past waterfalls. You see the valleys below you. You can see the like Mont Blanc off to your left and the glaciers. And that's a nice runnable section. You can get going. The only problem is now it's getting hot. As it got hotter and hotter and I got to about noon, 1 o'clock, I started backing off on purpose. And I think I mentioned that in the video where I just, like, there was a point where I just backed way off because I was getting a little lightheaded. It was hard to, like, if I stared at the ground while I was hiking up a hill and then looked around at the scenery, I felt like I was getting dizzy. And then every time I looked up, you know, you see how high the mountain is that you have to go, and you can see the switchbacks all the way up to, gosh, I can't remember what mile it was, but it had that big medallion that said where all the different countries and cities are. That climb to that point was probably the hardest climb because it just took forever, and you could keep seeing people ahead of you, and then they would disappear, and then you get up to their point and you realize there's still another third of the mountain to go. And it was just like, it was mentally draining. But once you get to the top, stop at the medallion, look around, be like, oh, Rome's that way, oh, Austria's that way, you know, and then, you know, just regroup. So now you're up to about mile 65 or so. You're coming into like Switzerland basically. You know, you're almost out of the heat by the time you get past that big monster climb. The sun's gonna start setting soon, and it's got some rollers in it and stuff too. Totally runnable if you have the quads. So just get to like 5, 6 o'clock, you're good. Now you just have to get through the night and get to the finish line. Now we were coming through one of the aid stations. I was running along the river there. I took my time. I got some food. There was a bathroom there. I remember, like, I just got everything I needed to get through, like, in basically to start heading towards nightfall. I walked along the river, just, gather myself up, and then I started into a run, and that was about mile, I don't know, 60, 65, something like that. And for, I don't know, it was like 5-10 miles. I just felt like I was running, just a nice, easy run, ups and downs, but it felt flat for the most part, with some rollers in there. And then eventually all of a sudden I just see that I'm in Switzerland, and like, I'm at mile 70 and there's shade, and I'm in the trees. Now the sun's setting and it's getting dark. And so from there on, it felt like I was going to have a great race, and it was going to get easier because you have this 10-mile stretch and it's getting cooler. And then you realize the worst hills of the whole course are the last 20 miles of the race, especially the last 10, 15 miles. It's not that they're 8,000 feet, 4-mile climbs. It's that they're 1 mile straight up 39% grade climbs. They are just stair steppers, and they're so steep. The reason those last few climbs are the hardest is because you're so sleep deprived. You're so tired, but they're also so difficult. They're technical, they're huge boulders. The descents are stair-stepping boulders down, and you have to really think about a path to go down. There's a section on one of the descents that it looks like there was a rock slide. There was no trail that should be there. There never was a trail, yet this is the course, and you're trying to figure out, how do I get through this rock slide of a thing? And you're just guessing. And then what people were doing, which I did to another guy when we were coming down, I'm like, I'm gonna follow his path because whatever he's seeing is probably the right path. So I'm just gonna follow him. There's no reason for me to pass him. He's just gonna pass me, I'm gonna pass him. So let's just work together, I'll follow him. And then when I was going down a descent, there were 3 or 4 people following me. They were like, what's he going to do? And then if somebody was in a hurry, they'd pass me and they go on a different route. But there were times where the route that I picked was the only route, because if you went down a certain section, all of a sudden this choose your own adventure of a path became a very difficult to get out of path, where you had to climb up over a boulder, back down, get over, you have to see it to believe it. It was nuts. And then once you finally get out of it, then you're back on a regular trail, and you're like, hey, where'd this thing come from? There's 3 climbs at the end that they're just long climbs, maybe miles 75, 80. You're coming out of the valley, and it just feels like you're never going to get to the top. You just keep going up this fire road, and what it is the snow melts in the springs or the summer or whatever it is. It all just washes down this road, and then when it's dry, it's all just rubble and rock and all the stuff that's washed out of thousands of years and stuff. And then you get to the top and you're like, oh, I finally made it. And then you go down a very steep hill and you can see a town off to the side in the dark. I have a Corliss Vertex 2S. I was looking at the map of the route, which it's so well marked. You're not going to make a wrong turn. In town, you might miss a flag on a side street or something, so you got to really pay attention instead of sightseeing. But otherwise, the trail has a flag every 10 feet. And I'm not kidding when I say 10 feet. I mean, it's flags everywhere. And you look at the watch and you look at the maps online and you think, okay, that hill is not that bad. It's only 1,000 feet over a mile or two or something. Well, those are straight up. And you're basically just poles on the ground, plant your foot, climb up. Plant your poles, climb up. And you're doing that for an hour. I think there was a stretch where I came out of aid station, I think it was 85, mile 85, I can't remember where it was. That first mile climb took me 44 minutes to go 1 mile. There's climbs that feel like you're never going to get to the top throughout the whole race, but at the end, you're getting so close to the end, you have 10 miles to go, and you're climbing up, and you get to the last aid station, which is basically a check-in kind of aid station. They have some water, but really you don't need to top off bottles because you only have like 4 miles to go. You'll see ski lifts and you're in the ski resort area. That's when you know you're like close to the aid station and you're like, great, I still have 4 miles, and it's a descent through rocks and roots, and you're tired and your quads are shot. So it's really hard to get going at a good running speed. From that last aid station down to the finish, it's all downhill. Just be prepared to have as much energy and strength as possible to get through the last, I think it's 3 major climbs. They are the hardest. There's longer climbs and there's colder climbs, but the last 3 are the most difficult and the physically exhausting climbs of the whole race. The trails out there, it's dusty and dust will come up in your mouth and your shoes, and you're going to want gaiters for this race for sure. You have roots, you have lots and lots of rocks to deal with. Just expect to be climbing over boulders or running through small little jagged rocks. It's very eroded trails from all the through hiking, and I mean you have decades of people trying to do the 100 and some mile route, whether they're camping overnight or doing it in one shot through UTMB. But there's been a lot of use of the trail. When I took a dirt nap, I got up and the whole front of me was just covered in dust. Okay, so you're coming down from the last aid station, 4 miles to go. You're doing some long fire roads, and you're doing some switchbacks, and you're making your way down. You can see Chamonix off to your left. Once you get down, you're going to cross over this big tower of stairs, this metal contraption.
And I'm crossing the highway.
And then you're going to follow the river all the way back to the finish line. And it's all going to be very familiar. Once you cross that bridge and you turn right along the river, you're going to be like, oh yeah, this is where we did pretty much everything leading up to the race. Expo, all that stuff. If you have family that wants to run with you, that's the best spot to have them meet you there, and they can run all the way to the finish with you. Or once you turn right at the road, and then you come up and then you make one more left, and that's a great spot for family to meet you because they can also run in. And the way the finish is set up, you do this little U-ey around the buildings, so your family can run with you, and somebody can take photos with you, and then they can cut through the street while you do this little loop around, and then they can be on the finish line looking for you. So tons of viewpoints, tons of meetup points at the end for family to enjoy that last moment with you and cheer you on. And then if you get there during the day, the streets are lined with people. If you get there early in the morning or overnight, nobody. It's pretty quiet. And unfortunately, I was one of those people where I got done at 7:30 in the morning or something like that. Nobody there. There were a handful of people, but it was basically just people waiting for the runners. The day before, walking through the streets, I'm like, this is awesome. I can't wait to have all these people. And nobody was there. So here's the finish line, and you're coming through the streets, and that's your backdrop. What's really nice about like Western States, UTMB, some of these like events, they're so family friendly or fan friendly that they allow somebody to run down the finish line as long as you're not obstructing other runners, but they allow you to be joined by people to cross the finish line, to be in like the final shoot of the race, and to take photos, to enjoy the moment with you, to share it with you. So that's really nice that they allow that. And again, they let you stand with you at the start line, which I didn't really understand and didn't really like because it took up so much space, but it's really nice they can be there at the beginning and they can be there at the end. And then it's difficult to meet up with them at the aid stations, but if they get the timing right and they get deal with the shuttle buses, plan on hour and a half, 2 hours in town and then to the aid station. Like Courmayeur, I think I was hearing people always take 2 hours to go from the Chamonix to Courmayeur. It's a 30-minute drive on a normal day. That also means that you have a chance of missing your crew at aid station. Hey, so you made it to the finish line. You're like, yay! And then about 10 seconds after you finish, reality sets in. You're gonna get lightheaded. You're gonna get dehydrated. You're gonna be exhausted. You're gonna want to sleep. Everything just decides to shut down in a split second. There was a stage right by the finish line, and I was able to sit on the edge of it and talk to some of the other runners that I'd ran with throughout the race, get some photos. And then they had some hookah chairs sitting in this just off to the side that you could kind of sit in and rest in. So there's spots where you can sit and kind of gather yourself and just kind of, recover for a bit. But right by the, 100 feet from the finish line is where you get this, and it says finish your vest. And they don't give medals out, they don't give buckles out, they give you a vest. And when you're wearing this home on the airplane, it's kind of a big deal because 40% of the field didn't finish. So when they see a vest, they always say, good job, congrats. So you can get your vest, you can get a photo. There's a photo op area that says finisher. You can have all your gear on and get a good photo of that. Spot over the side, and this is where I got completely let down. Fine, but I got to the post-race food area thinking, okay, now they're gonna have burgers, hot dogs, I don't know, pizza, all the stuff you can get in town. And they had a hot dog in this bun thing. It was kind of like a corn dog thing, and it was good, but I just wasn't hungry. I just felt horrible. And then I said, what else do you have? And it was all the same food from the aid station. I'm not kidding. The stuff I was sick of eating through the whole race was the post-race food, except for the hot dog. And they had beer. That was the only two exceptions. I did take a bite of the hot dog. It was really good. I just felt horrible and could not eat for 5 hours after the race. So where you drop off your drop bag for Courmayeur before the race, that's where you're going to pick it up. And it's only open until 4 p.m. on Sunday night. When they say 4 p.m., they lock the doors, they pack up everything, and if it's not picked up by then, I'm not sure exactly what they do with it, if they donate it or if they have a secondary place, but don't be late. So I know you're exhausted after the race, but you're so close to the bag drop that if there's a way for you to go back and get it at that time, that'd be a good idea. Another tip, when we were sitting at the finish line area, and I was just exhausted, I'm just sitting on a step, we were trying to go back to get my bag drop. It was 3 o'clock or something like that, 2 o'clock. They had a vendor booth right by the finish line that was selling some merchandise that hadn't been sold on during the expo, and it was half off. So we got 2 matching sweatshirts, these big blue sweatshirts, for half off. One tip that I don't think a lot of people know is when you do ultras, don't go back to your hotel and stand up in a hot shower, because a hot shower, I don't know all the medical jargon, all that kind of stuff, but basically the blood goes from your head down to your feet when you're taking a hot shower after an endurance race, and that's why you get lightheaded and maybe pass out. So do a bath, sit down in the shower. Just a word of advice, I have passed out after a race, and that is why I just took a hot shower too quickly after a race, even an hour after the race. If you have the spa, go do a cold plunge, just rest, relax, because your body is going to be a mess. You're going to be hurting, you're going to be sleep deprived, you're gonna be eating at 2 in the morning, and you're gonna wake up hungry. Everything, your whole body just has no idea what day it is or what time of day it is. So be prepared to be kind of a train wreck for a while. We went to Geneva and spent Monday after the race and walked the town. It was a struggle. It's a hillier town than I thought it was gonna be, but we got a nice like quick one-day tour of Geneva. Enjoyed it. Lots of great food. The chocolate is amazing. We had a Michelin restaurant burger, and it was like $40. So stupid the price, but it was so good. It was so unique, and we just wanted to say we'd been to a Michelin restaurant. Now we're flying home from Geneva all the way back to Washington, D.C. before we do a bunch of other connecting flights to finally get home. One thing to do is you get these wristbands that say UTMB or CCC.
And now you have to
So they give you those little bands, and everybody on the flight home or just walking around Geneva or something, they had their bands on still, and you knew exactly which race they did, and it was a great talking point because you come up and again, this is what I love about, like, especially just endurance racing or trail racing, is they just say, did you finish? And that's it, or how did you do? Not about your time. So definitely leave your wristband on all the way till you get home. I left on for a few extra days just because that's what I do. I did it after all my Abbott World Majors, or I did it after Western States. So it's just a great talking point and a good memory to have. But on the airplane, it'll get people to talk to you for sure, guaranteed. There's an app for the race, and it was really hard to track people. I was told that the website was so much better for tracking your athlete. So if, whether you're on your phone or something like that, the app's helpful, I guess, to a point, but it's a lot more precise, a lot more accurate to find your runner if you're using the actual website. This is the birthday girl around here. That's Shadow. So anyways, to wrap up everything, I hope for the handful of people who watch this, I know it's not for everybody. Not everybody does UTMB. Not everybody can get into UTMB. I was fortunate enough to have the experience, and it was a blast. For me, it's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It was stressful leading up to the race, all the gear I need to bring and all the requirements, for getting registered and all that stuff. But once I got there, it was just a blast. It was stress-free. It's a smooth run operation. They know what they're doing. The volunteers are great. The race organization, amazing. But do take some advice on those aid stations or what gear to bring, and just do your research ahead of time. Make sure you have everything when you fly over, just in case. You never know if it's going to be cold weather, hot weather. But once you get there, the experience is going to be phenomenal. You're going to love it. The views are just, you can't even put them into words. It's like the experience is just truly awesome. So if you have the chance to run UTMB, just make sure you enjoy the run.